Also tonight, arson for hire. A man burned out of his home in Buffalo's Old First Ward, and now the FBI believes it may have been a hate crime. And a neighbor gave a stunning reaction today after learning that fiery crime may have been rooted in racism. This is the latest development, a story we've been following very closely since last year. News 4's Ed Dranch has more on what happened today, and we want to warn you some of the statements you're about to hear may be offensive. Ed?
Don, federal prosecutors stopped short of calling this a hate crime, but continued to look for evidence to prove it as such. We went back to the Buffalo community today asking if hate fueled the fire. Tonight, you may be shocked by what one neighbor has to say. Federal investigators have been looking into this Mackinac Street fire for more than a year. Prosecutors say the house in the Old First Ward was intentionally set on fire.
So the property owner and the victim was a refugee that had fled oppression and immigrated to the United States in pursuit of the American dream.
Now investigators are looking for more evidence to prove race may have been a motivating factor. They're offering a reward to anyone who can help with further information leading to an arrest of the person who burned the house down.
The elements of the case indicate that there possibly may be a hate crime motivated incident. We want to get to the bottom of it.
I went back to the Buffalo neighborhood to see if residents believe race could have played a role in the crime. That's where I met this man who was working to repair a home damaged in last year's fire. They're classifying this fire as a potential hate crime. What do you think about that?
I think that if people just stayed in their own side of town, their own neighborhood, that things like that wouldn't happen.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, every race and color has their own section of Buffalo almost, so if they just stay on their own side, things like this wouldn't happen.
He says he's lived in the Old First Ward for more than 30 years.
People in these neighborhoods don't want those type of people moving down here and ruining the property value and destroying the neighborhood. So when things like that happen, it shouldn't be such a shock.
What do you mean by those types of people?
Minorities, African Americans.
Why are you coming out and saying these things?
Because I own a home and I see what happens when they move into the neighborhood. Property value goes down, kids on the corner, crime goes up. The East Side used to be a beautiful place. Look what they did to that.
But not everyone felt the same way. One woman who moved to the area right before last year's fire said she was disappointed to learn the crime could be racially motivated. You're standing here looking at the empty lot. What goes through your mind?
It seemed like this was their dream. They came here, I think from the Congo probably to have a better life, and this is what they have now.
Despite the mix of opinion, this man stands by his assertion. Do you think there's anything wrong with what you're saying?
I don't feel there's anything wrong with it. A lot of people would feel wrong about it, but I don't.
The FBI is yet to charge anyone with a hate crime, but as we've reported, one man is facing arson-related charges. If you know anything about the crime, you're asked to call the FBI at 856-7800. Live, Ed Dranch, News 4 at 5.
Well, every race and color has their own section of Buffalo almost, so if they just stay on their own side, things like this wouldn't happen.
It gives me a greater comfort level now of talking about race, because when others then say he's only pulling the race card, I'm going to say I didn't pull it. I didn't deal it. Here it is. It's in front of us.
Now, these comments came to News 4 from a South Buffalo contractor talking about a firebombing in the Old First Ward classified as a possible hate crime by the U.S. Attorney. The controversial contractor interview has drawn 5,000 views on WIVB.com and plenty of Facebook comments. Charles writes, "Whites never respect blacks. I don't get how a white man says something racist, then all of you say it's a two-way street." And Ariel writes, saying, "I'm so sick of the race card being brought up. People are too easily offended. There's no changing the past." News 4's Ed Dranch first aired the contractor's comments last night. Tonight, he reports it's prompted a new debate about the racial divide.
People in these neighborhoods don't want those type of people moving down here and ruining the property value and destroying the neighborhood. So when things like that happen, it shouldn't be such a shock.
What do you mean by those types of people?
Minorities. African Americans. The
comments made by this South Buffalo man have created an overnight buzz in Buffalo. Friday morning, he called the Shred and Reagan show, hoping to set the record straight.
I think what's come across is you believe black people ruin neighborhoods. Well, they just happened to ruin this one. They're starting to ruin this one, yeah.
Reverend Darius Pridgeon said he was initially shocked by the comments, but then had a different thought.
I was almost kind of happy about it. And the reason I was happy about it is because if I bring up race, then people say he's bringing up the race card because I am African American. But to hear somebody else bring up race and to be very honest about how they felt, it was almost like a aha moment. We can finally have this conversation that there are people who still feel that whole groups of people are wrong because of the actions of a few.
He said now is the time for a conversation on race relations.
I think the timing is perfect, especially in a Buffalo that's changing. You can't ignore these type of conversations and have a city that is growing.
Pridgeon said our interview exposed what many think but don't say even in 2012. That said, we took the interview to Mayor Byron Brown.
I think those kinds of views have no place in our society today. We need to be a tolerant people. We need to be people that respect the diversity of this community.
Here it is. It's in front of us. We've just been ignoring it and hoping that it would go away. Obviously, it's not.
Pridgeon said you can't perceive one community negatively because of a few bad people, black or white. But he said if there's any truth to what some think, the community needs to get themselves together to right the wrongs. Reporting live tonight, Edge Ranch News 4 at 6.
What can we learn as a community from comments like this?
People in these neighborhoods don't want those type of people moving down here and ruining the property value and destroying the neighborhood. So when things like that happen, it shouldn't be such a shock.
Good evening. Those words were shocking and for many very hurtful to hear. But that interview we brought you last month also opened the door to what some say was a long overdue discussion on race relations in Buffalo. Senior correspondent Rich Newberg is digging deeper into this issue in tonight's special assignment. Rich?
Diana, that interview by Ed Dranch struck a deep nerve in a city still struggling with segregated neighborhoods and prejudices that have spanned generations. Tonight, the response to that interview.
People in these neighborhoods don't want those type of people moving down here and ruining the property value and destroying the neighborhoods.
William Shanahan's comments that African Americans are not welcomed in Buffalo's Old First Ward were spoken by a man who wasn't from that community and wasn't designated to speak for that community. Shanahan had been hired to paint Sarah Heidinger's house at the time he was interviewed by News 4's Ed Dranch. Sarah objects to Shanahan's comments being aired on TV.
It upsets me that we keep being presented as a whole based on one person's opinion, especially he didn't even know what happened here.
What happened is that a white former board member of the Old First Ward Community Association, Michael Feigel, has been charged with arranging the torching of a property owned by an African-American landlord.
The elements of the case indicate that there possibly may be a hate crime motivated incident. We want to get to the bottom of it.
As I walked away from the site of the burned down house with Laura Kelly, who directs the Old First Ward Community Association, she told me the alleged torching of the house had already gotten people talking about race relations. Shanahan's comments, she said, only aggravated the situation.
This particular neighborhood was hurt and outraged.
The hurt rippled right through the Perry public housing complex as well.
I thought it was the rudest comment I ever heard.
What do you mean by those types of people?
Minorities.
As hurtful as his comments were, Shanahan's views brought the subject of racism to the surface, forcing some citywide soul searching.
Let's be honest, there are black people who feel the same way. We need to have this conversation.
But there is hope that the younger generation won't even need to have that conversation. In fact, there's a project underway right now here in the Old First Ward that brings children of all backgrounds and races together to lift up the community. Here they are reconstructing a once burned out house, so a moderate income family will have a second chance at the American dream.
You see as kids from all over the city of Buffalo learning a building trade and at the same time creating new affordable housing in the Old First Ward.
The focus is on the project, but the children are also learning how to work as an interracial team, sharing common goals. It is a new concept for some.
it's opening your eyes to something new that you never knew was there.
See, I don't discriminate against any color. You could be anything, and I'm okay with it because you're a person just like me. You know, we eat, sleep, and breathe. You know, it's natural things we all do, and you know, I get along with everybody. You show me kindness, I show you kindness.
The project may have already inspired other homeowners on the block to keep up their property.
Since we've been here the last 7 or 8 months, I've noticed several houses have gotten re-sided, new roofs, and it's starting to spruce up quite a bit.
One of the most ambitious projects to ever be undertaken in the Old First Ward elevates what is now a public housing sector. There are big plans underway to not only transform the Perry housing community here into what's being called a choice neighborhood, but also to change some people's attitudes toward race.
Can change a neighborhood and a community.
Dr. Henry Taylor tells me the Commodore Perry district would become a mixed-income, interracial community with affordable housing and a vibrant commercial center, including shops, stores, and restaurants, a neighborhood, he says, that even William Shanahan might envy.
There's enough of us to rebuild that neighborhood and community. And I tell you what, once we have done that, this die-hard, mean-spirited racist will say, I was wrong. Can I come live over there too? It's going to happen, I guarantee you.
The Perry Choice Neighborhood Initiative is competing nationally for tens of millions of dollars of grant money. We'll let you know how it progresses. And as the dialogue on racism progresses, News 4 will be there to document it and report it. Reporting live, Rich Newberg, News 4 at 5:30.
Thank you, Rich. And there's a lot more to this story. If you're interested in a brief history of race relations in Buffalo and would like to see Rich's entire interview with Dr. Henry Taylor of the UB Center for Urban Studies, click on this story on our website, WIBB.com.